Apparently, the National Association of Realtors settlement is far from settled. If you have been paying attention to what's going on in the real estate industry, and more importantly, if you have been tuning into this channel, you will know that this is something that I predicted would happen a couple of weeks ago. Brian here with Lamacchia Realty, and if you recall in that video, I said that there is no way that the Department of Justice signs off on leaving the cooperating compensation in that settlement in the way existing in the way in which it currently does. So, quick recap. Moving forward, as of mid-July, you are no longer, as a real estate agent, I am no longer going to be able to put a buyer's broker commission in MLS. However, there was a carve-out in the settlement reached between National Association of Realtors and the plaintiffs in the Sitzer-Burnett case that said listing agents will still have the ability to offer a cooperating compensation, but it cannot be done through the local and state MLSs. Instead, you've got to communicate that through other channels. So that could be through through calls, through texts, through your own private websites, through brokerage websites. There weren't any specifics behind how you could and couldn't do it. All that was clear was that you could not advertise that cooperating compensation in MLS. Let's fast forward to last Friday, I think it was, allowed the Department of Justice to open up their investigation again into the National Association of Realtors. Now, this was settled back in 2020. National Association of Realtors said, based on the findings of the Department of Justice, we agree to make these changes. And one of the changes was we will no longer compel listing agents or sellers to put an offer of compensation in MLS. But what they quickly discovered is that unless you flat out do not allow it at all across the board, then there's very few people that are going to actually do that. Because the reason why is because those properties presumably are ones that agents were allegedly steering their clients away from. Now, the reality is it's not the agents that are quote unquote steering their customers away from those properties. It's the buyers that drive that process. And the buyers are smart enough to know that if a seller is not willing to pay their buyer agent commission, then they've got to come up with that out of pocket. So in those situations, a buyer could be looking at $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 that they've got to come up with in addition to the down payment, as well as the closing costs for that home purchase. So how many buyers do you know are going to sign up for that? Very few, right? Especially when the marketplace, when there's plenty of other properties on the market that the buyer agent commission is being paid for through the proceeds of the sale via the listing agent's commission being shared. Here we are, present day. Department of Justice is essentially saying, we want to open this back up again because we see what's happening in the settlement, and the settlement is insufficient, in our opinion, as to what should happen in this case. Now, what you see is kind of two camps, or what you saw is two camps when the ruling came through or when the settlement came through. You had some people that were like, oh, don't worry about it. It looks like it's going to be business as usual. When I say some people, I'm talking specifically agents. You had one half of the agents that were saying like, oh, it's going to be business as usual. We're going to continue to be able to offer that compensation, that buyer agent compensation, but it just won't be done through MLS. So I'm not even going to worry about it. Myself and about half of the other agents were like, time out. Like, this makes absolutely no sense, because the whole premise of this lawsuit is that the sellers don't want to allegedly pay a buyer agent commission, and they want to essentially decouple the two. So a seller should be paying the listing agent commission, and a buyer should be paying the buyer agent commission. If we're still allowed to offer that buyer agent commission, that's a problem. And it's not necessarily a problem in the deal itself, but that blanket offer of compensation is a problem. So again, I talked about it a couple weeks ago, and I said this is never going to fly with the Department of Justice, and here we are a few weeks later now that it seems to me that that is exactly what's going to happen. So I've got an article pulled up. I'm not going to read it. Instead, I'm just going to put a link to it down below, but it talks about exactly what's going on here. What are your thoughts about this? I really want to hear. I learned so much from seeing people in the comment section talk about what they're seeing in their market and how agents are responding, how consumers are responding to this. I've had a couple of listing appointments, and it absolutely has come up during the listing appointment. And there are some people that are like, "Well, I'll just wait to sell my house until July when I don't have to I don't have to pay the buyer agent commission." And of course, that couldn't be further from the truth. You still might ultimately pay it, but it's just going to be part of the deal. So it's going to work no differently than commercial real estate. So sellers, you're still going to have to be willing to pay that buyer agent commission if an offer comes in with that attached to it. At the end of the day, none of it matters because you're just looking at the net amount that you're going to get after the sale of your home. So whatever the commissions are, if an offer comes in and it's say a $50,000 commission that you've got to pay out to a buyer agent, but that offer happens to be $25,000 or $30,000 more than the next best offer, would you not take it? Of course you would, right? Because net to you, you're going to be making more money. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out over the next couple of months. I do not think by mid-July this is all going to be settled. I think there's going to be some type of extension, maybe through the end of the year. I just don't see it happening. And I think the bigger issue here is that now that National Association of Realtors has settled, that's just like one part of this, the sellers. You've got now the buyers who are, coming together in a class action lawsuit, which could be potentially even bigger than the sellers. So, how much money is there to go around? I don't think enough. So I think it's clear at this point that the Department of Justice, they're really trying to take National Association of Realtors out. And as they are trying to do with many big businesses right now. Again, let me know down in the comments what you're seeing out there. What are you hearing from consumers, home sellers, home buyers? What are you seeing from other agents? And what are you seeing in your brokerages? That's all I have for today. If you did enjoy content like this, make sure that you smash that like button so more people see it, and also subscribe to the channel for additional content like this. Have a great day. Take care.